rounding third with home plate in sight. But even the best players need a coach to wave them in. Safe! Welcome to Perfect Game Retirement, hosted by Ryan Ledden, former pro baseball player, University of Georgia economics graduate, and now certified financial planner with Black Oak Asset Management. He's here to guide you through the final stretch and help you slide safely into a winning retirement. Play ball!
Welcome in. Glad to have you inside Perfect Game Retirement one more time. We got a good show for you coming up this week as we catch up with Ryan Ledden at Black Oak Asset Management, talking all kinds of retirement planning and financial planning topics. Today, we're talking about why sometimes being a great advisor isn't all about crunching numbers. It's about having those tough conversations that a lot of people would just rather avoid. So we'll ask Ryan how he gets through those conversations, how he approaches them with his clients, and why they are so important. Then we'll also take to the friendly skies of retirement planning as well to see what air travel could teach us about reaching your financial destination safely. So it should be a good show. Once again, remember, as always, you can schedule a complimentary consultation with Black Oak Asset Management, who has offices in Alpharetta, Macon, and Lawrenceville. You can do that over the phone right now, 800-388-0085. Again, 800-388-0085. Ryan, welcome in. How you doing this week?
Yeah, doing pretty well. It's kind of weird that kind of sports seasons have come to an end. My daughter's softball team lost out in the playoffs, which is unfortunate, and they couldn't head down to Columbus, which is an awesome event for all high school classifications in Georgia, to go down there. And they came up a series short, but still pretty good, Sweet 16 and region champ. So I mean, that's a pretty good freshman year. Pretty good freshman year for her. So it was a good one, and we got a lot of girls coming back, so it'll be fun. And then my son's team, they're used to winning championships, and they didn't even make the playoffs this year. They fell up a little short on a playoff game I shouldn't say playoff game, but essentially it was a playoff game to see who made the final two spots, and they came up short. But you know what? It was sometimes you learn more from losses than you do victories, and we were in a different league, much more competitive, so that was, I think, a good learning experience. Whereas last year we beat the brakes off of pretty much everybody we played, and so it was almost like a wasted season. I don't think we learned a lot from that. So anyway, good lessons learned, but still got a little travel ball to go for my daughter's team, and then we'll go into the holidays and have a little bit of a downtime.
Well, I was going to say, if you've been listening to the show, and we're here every week, you probably track some of Ryan's busy schedule with kids, sports. So you've got to have a little bit of downtime now before the end of the year?
Yeah, I think we will. My daughter's travel ball. They have a few tournaments in November, Clearwater, and a couple others in the local Atlanta area. But my son's baseball will be done. So no one's playing basketball this year. My daughter used to play basketball. She's gonna stop playing that. My son's not going to do indoor track. I think my kids' bodies just need to rest a little bit, but we will ramp it back up and get ready for the upcoming seasons as far as travel ball again for my daughter, and then baseball season for my son, and then we'll hit the track circuit in the summer.
All right. Well, good luck with the road ahead. I know our conversation today about what we can learn from air travel is perfect with what you got going on with your schedule, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on. We're going to hop in now. Remember, again, you can schedule a complimentary consultation right now with Ryan, 800-388-0085. It's a great opportunity to talk about anything that's on your mind. Begin looking ahead to your financial future. Again, make sure you're taking the steps today to get there. You can do that by calling 800-388-0085. You can book a time to meet with Black Oak Asset Management. So, Ryan, I mentioned these tough conversations. I know as an advisor, a lot of people think, okay, you help me with my investments, right? That's all you do. You just kind of help me manage my numbers. But I know there's a lot of tough conversations and uncomfortable conversations that need to be had. And I want to talk about that a little bit with how you help navigate these, because they can be a little tricky, right? I mean, not everything that you talk about is rainbows and butterflies, is it?
No, there's definitely tough conversations that are had, and sometimes it's because of what markets are doing, account balances are down, but again, a lot of it has to do with just life happening, and sometimes life happening is not always great. Sometimes there are great things, but then sometimes, we have to prepare for those bad things that can happen, and that's why we're there to have contingency plans, if you will, because many times these things do happen.
Well, let's talk about a few. I want to begin with the death of a spouse. Obviously, this is a highly emotional time, and I don't think a lot of people think about, okay, a financial advisor helping out with that. But there's a lot of huge financial implications, obviously, that comes with that. And it's even harder to navigate those when you're dealing with all the emotion and the grief that comes along with that.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. The emotional part is probably the obviously the toughest to deal with, but then there's always financial ramifications when it comes to that. So that's why we try to be the voice of reason during a time where people are very sad, whether it's expected or not, because a lot of our people we work with, sometimes the spouses get sick and we kind of know it's inevitable. We just don't know exactly when, but it's going to be inevitable. Some faster than others. I've had some that get sick and they passed away a month later, and some it's been years and years and years. So they have maybe a little bit more time to prepare for these things. But death of a first spouse, it's got to be discussed because, I mean, very rarely do both spouses pass away close to the same time, and that's usually because of an accident or something like that, and those cases are rare. But it's usually death of one spouse, and then one is left behind, and where do they go from there? How does income different? How is taxes different? Because taxes are different when you're a single filer versus married filing jointly. Sometimes you move to a higher tax bracket, even though your income maybe stayed the same or went down. You're in a higher tax bracket because of how the income brackets work and the income thresholds. Pensions, are those going to be reduced or no longer carry on? Or Social Security, you're obviously going to lose one of the benefits. You keep the higher of the two, which is great, but you're going to lose a benefit, so there's income that goes down. So there's just a lot of adjustment, and death, it needs to be addressed and to go over these things. Now, that's not the first thing that we talk about when we're going through a retirement plan, but it does need to be discussed because there are going to be pieces that have to be, collected and put together after that one spouse does pass away.
Yeah, I know it's so hard to talk about these things, but having someone on your side that can help kind of guide you through this process and make sure you're doing what needs to be done now and knowing what can be done later on, but also just being prepared, right, can help ease your mind so much. And that's a tough conversation that you have to have. And I know another one here, Ryan, is nursing home care. When someone knows they actually need to have this now, how do you navigate kind of working through that?
This one may be even a little tougher than the death of a first spouse, because we kind of know death is inevitable. That's going to happen. We just don't know if some type of nursing care or in-home care is going to take place or happen, because some of us have grandparents that may not have needed anything, and then some that do. But I don't know if it's I'm not going to need that, or just a prideful kind of ego type of thing. But sometimes it's just very difficult to talk about. People don't want to, in a healthy state, they don't want to think, I'm going to need someone to take care of me, and I'm going to need to pay someone to help take care of me. So I just think it's that kind of strong-willed part of our brain that just doesn't want to talk about this. So sometimes it's even more uncomfortable than the death of one spouse. But it's got to be talked about. It's got to be addressed. How they go. There's a bunch of different ways to pay for that care, and that's a whole different topic. But there's options that need to be walked through. And you know what? If we walk through it and talk through it, and people just don't want to do anything, then, hey, that's their decision. I have to kind of lead them in one direction or the other. Hey, this is what I've seen based off the people that I work with. And so it needs to be talked about, because it is a difficult conversation. One, because we don't want to be taken care of, but two, it's also the cost can be super, super expensive. So we don't want one spouse to need care and drain assets, and then the other spouse is left behind with a fraction of the assets that are left behind. So we need to, how are we going to combat that? How are we going to plan for that? And it's a difficult conversation to have.
Yeah, with all these tough topics that you have to discuss, you can always be in a better position by being prepared, right? And knowing what to expect. You can't always predict what's going to happen, but being prepared for whatever life presents you is always going to put you in a much better frame of mind. And you can get in touch right now with Black Oak Asset Management to begin having these conversations. 800-388-0085. Again, jot this number down, 800-388-0085. You'll set up a 15 to 20-minute conversation to get to know Ryan a little bit better, but also to let him better understand your situation as well. What are you worried about? What are you concerned about? moving forward right now and begin starting that process to address some of those conversations and those concerns, you can do that at 800-388-0085. All right, so I know a lot of people have in mind a retirement date, and maybe they're set on that, or maybe you're just ready to stop working altogether and get to retirement. But what if you have to work longer than you planned originally, right? That's a big worry, and I know that's something that, Ryan, you'll have to talk with someone about who maybe has a date set in mind, but the reality is, okay, you're not ready to retire yet. You need to keep working. How do you tell someone this?
Yeah, this one, a lot of times this one is sometimes not as difficult because I think most people know that they need to continue to work. Maybe they started saving later in life or ran up too much debt for whatever reason. Most of the time people know, I'm going to have to work until, and a lot of times I ask them, when would you like to retire and when do you think you're going to need to retire? Sometimes those are two completely different answers. So I like to ask those questions just to get a feel. And sometimes the answer is better than they expect. Oh, I'm going to have to work till the day I die, that type of thing. I've had people say that before, and I'm like, no. Let's figure out. Let's plan it out and do the math on that. So, but yeah, sometimes people do realize it, and know I have to tell them, like, hey, we need to put off, for a year or two. But it's amazing how just 1 or 2 years putting that off, what it does to a financial plan. It moves the needle quite a bit. So sometimes people, they're like, oh, well, okay, I can do, if that gets me to that, I can do this for another year or 6 months or 2 years, whatever that looks like. So having that conversation is sometimes difficult, but usually easier than the previous two.
All right, another tough conversation they have to have at Black Oak Asset Management with clients is about the estate plan. And more specifically, do our children understand the estate plan, how they fit into it, if they fit into it at all? So I know, Ryan, again, death is a tough conversation. A lot of families don't like to include kids in the financial side of things when they're talking about it. So how do you kind of work through this and make sure that everyone is on the same page in the family?
Yeah, I mean, having conversations with your children or whoever's going to be the beneficiaries of your estate, just they need to happen. Oh my gosh, it just makes it so much easier on everyone if these conversations are open and candid and it's just discussed. And so many times that it's not discussed, that's where a lot of tension happens, because I mean, it's amazing, money and possessions, how it can divide a family really, really quick. And so I think it's my responsibility to encourage my clients to have discussion with their kids, but then we also, my clients, I'm like, hey, if we don't work with their kids, a lot of times we do. We work with kind of different generations, which is great, makes that transition a whole lot easier. But if we don't, and they work with someone else or just maybe do something on their own as far as financial planning goes, but they are more than welcome. We invite them to these meetings just so they hear. And a lot of times parents or clients, they'll say, oh, yeah, but we'd love to have them there. Because I kind of take the pressure off the situation a lot of times, just to have these open conversations. So I'm kind of the mediator, I guess you could say, in this conversation. So It makes it a little easier that, hey, I was a part of these decisions and to help out. And here's how it's going to go moving forward.
Again, all these tough conversations you want to have with a trusted financial advisor on your side. Ryan is a certified financial planner. He is president of Black Oak Asset Management. You'll find their offices in Alpharetta, Macon, and Lawrenceville, also now in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida. Give them a call, 800-388-0085, 800-388-0085. They give you the opportunity to schedule this complimentary consultation right now for listening to the show, just as being a part of the program every week, 800-388-0085. I know, Ryan, you're not going to have a lot of these tough conversations up front, right? It's about getting to learn more about who the person is before you move forward with any of the planning.
That's right. I mean, these difficult conversations, that goes when we have a relationship and we're working with people. But on the front end, it gets more high level and it gets more granular the more conversations we do have. But that introductory call is literally an introductory call. I have a pad of paper in front of me. I listen. I let the person steer the conversation. I don't have an agenda. I want to hear where people are coming from and obviously ask me questions. I may have a few as well. But that first conversation is more just like, hey, is this a fit to have a deeper dive meeting or phone call or Zoom call? Because we don't want to waste people's time and vice versa. If there's just a 15 to 20 minute call, I can answer a few questions for them. That's fine, and then we move on from there. But sometimes it's like, okay, this seems like a pretty good fit. There's a need and a want, and we feel like we're kind of mutually aligned. And it's amazing what you can gather in a 15 to 20-minute conversation. Then the first in-depth conversation or meeting, that's where we get a little bit more granular to really figure out if we're a good fit and they're a good fit for us.
All right, very good. It all begins, again, with a call at 800-388-0085, 800-388-0085. We have more coming up right here on Perfect Game Retirement with Ryan Ledden at Black Oak Asset Management, so stay tuned.
You're listening to Perfect Game Retirement.
You're listening to Perfect Game Retirement with Ryan Ledden, certified financial planner and president of Black Oak Asset Management. Ryan, I know you've put together a couple of books for people, which we give you the opportunity to get your hands on free of charge at 800-388-0085. One that I know has been getting a lot of attention with everything going on in the news and within the government is the book you put together for federal employees.
Yeah, we have gotten a lot of traction with that, and obviously this in recent headlines with the government shutdown. Obviously, with federal employees, there was kind of a hot button topic even earlier this year. But yeah, it's a kit that you can request, and we'll send it out. We just obviously need accurate information of name and address to send it to. But it's called the Federal Retirement Code. And you can access those on our website. You can go to retireperfect.com, but there's 3 different kits there. Again, the hottest one right now is the Federal Retirement Code. Those are for federal employees and navigating your benefits and retirement plans there. So it's a book with other supplemental materials in there. Also, there's just the diffuse the retirement threat. So those people who are out there looking to retire maybe in the next few years or maybe just retired, and it's kind of a how-to step-by-step on what you need to do. So we're definitely proud of that one, and we also have a kit for women, and they're mainly for divorcees and widows. And again, you can still request it even if you're married. And but again, it's kind of focused toward women, and that kit as well is on the website. So 3 different ones they can choose from, 3 different books that we wrote, and super proud of all 3 of them.
Love that. Get your hands on these right now. 800-388-0085. 800-388-0085. Now, speaking of women, we did get a question from Kathy in Brookhaven this week. I want to ask you, Ryan. She says, how wise is it to count on an inheritance as part of my retirement plan? Unless something goes horribly wrong, I'll be getting a significant amount of money from my mom, which would more than cover my income needs in my later years. I don't want to rely too heavily on that money, but also don't want to save so much now that I can't enjoy my present life and then end up with more than I need when I'm 75. So how should I approach this? And I know that's tough to find that balance, right, Ryan?
It is, but I'm okay with because again, Kathy, it sounds like they're calling this the Great Wealth Transfer. So these are the early baby boomers who are passing away and passing on a good bit of wealth. So we hear all these stats and figures every single day. But Kathy, I don't think it's not irresponsible or to include that in your retirement plan. Now, obviously, we're not going to solely base our retirement plan on that, but I tell people, hey, it's okay to include this. Again, we don't know exactly when it's going to take place, but we can, and I ask them, hey, when do you want to include this? Especially if it's something very significant. If it's not and you don't want to include it, okay, that's fine. But when those events happen, at least it's accounted for and we kind of knew of it. And then we can really make a definitive decision on how this money is going to work once it is transferred into your name. So, Kathy, it's not bad karma or juju or anything like that when you're talking about it. And especially if you're having open conversations with those loved ones that may be passing on an inheritance to you. So nothing wrong with it. I like to account for it and just make note of it. We can include it in the plan if we want to. And if we don't want to, that's okay. But at least it's accounted for and we know about it.
All right, very good. Thanks, Kathy. Again, that's a perfect reason to follow up with Ryan and Black Oak Asset Management. You can call right now, 800-388-0085. Give them a call, 800-388-0085. All right, I know we got a lot of travel coming up during the holidays, Ryan, so I thought it was fitting to discuss some of the financial lessons in our retirement plan that we can learn from air travel. So let's lay this out here. I want to start with the flight plan. Obviously, you have to have a flight plan when you're heading in any direction. or at least you hope your pilots have that, right? So let's go ahead and relate that to financial planning. So I know it's important to kind of know where you're headed, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is probably the thing that we harp on the most on this show, or if it's on our YouTube channel, is the plan. I mean, if you don't have one and you cover every aspect of a retirement plan, if you do not do that, you could be way off. And I've read all these little stats, and I've read it in a book somewhere. I think it was The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. Like, if you're in LA and you're trying to fly to New York, and if you're like just 1 degree off, it's amazing how far off you are. So again, you have to have a plan. You have to know what income sources you have, what investments you have, your Social Security, your Medicare, your tax planning, your tax preparation, your estate planning, insurance, annuities. I mean, there's a ton of puzzle pieces, and we help people with all of that. So it's not just piecemealed. Oh, we're investment managers and that's it. No, you got to cover the whole gamut. And we have different people in our office that kind of specialize in different things. So having a flight plan or having a retirement plan is a absolute must. You just cannot wing it and go, hey, that's my income. I'm going to have a lot in Social Security coming in, so that's all I'm going to need, which may be true, but there's still so much more to it and how we're going to plan for required minimum distributions that are going to have to be taking place at the age of 73. And eventually, some of us who are younger, it'll be 75. But how are we going to navigate those waters? What income bracket is that going to move us to? Because that could affect your Social Security taxation. It could affect your Medicare premium. So a lot of things to consider and cover. And like we talked about in the previous segment, having those different difficult conversations. If something were to happen to someone, what happens to the plan? So a lot of things to cover, and that's one of the most important things is to have a plan, but to cover each one of those aspects that I just mentioned.
Yeah, don't leave it up to chance. Get that plan in place, 800-388-0085 to begin that process with Black Oak Asset Management and Ryan Ledden, 800-388-0085. Now, I love this one, Ryan. I know when you're flying, some people are fine with turbulence. They can be bouncing all over the place and still manage to sleep right through it. Others, just a very subtle bump will have them very uncomfortable. And same with what you do, right? I mean, you think about the market, turbulence in the market is going to affect people in all types of ways. So how does that impact how you approach planning?
Yeah, it is definitely different across the board, and everyone's portfolio is going to be a little bit different. Their planning is going to be a little bit different. Are there some tendencies that may be the same for certain groups of people? Sure, but it's different, and we have to pinpoint that. And a lot of times you don't really truly find that out until there's a downturn. In 2022, we found out for a lot of people, if you're not rebalancing, because especially in years 2020 and 2021, the market was really, really good. So it's almost like, oh, well, why would I take some of my money out of the market and rebalance it and put it in things that may not be doing as well, or maybe a little bit more conservative? Because when that volatility does hit in the negative way, which happened in 2022, then your portfolio could have lost a whole lot more than maybe you expected if you weren't rebalancing. So you really find out that when that turbulence hits in 2022 as an example, what really happens. And look, let's fast forward. The last few years have been really good, 23, 24, and then this year is kind of continuing on. So it's good times to rebalance these things so the volatility doesn't hit our portfolios even more than we expected. Because if you're not rebalancing and changing things around, which is what we help people with, then if there is a pullback, and there will be a pullback, I am not saying it's imminent. It's just a matter of when. There's always pullbacks. It's just going to happen. Corrections are a part of a market economy. That's what we're in. So it's going to happen, and that's our job to really pinpoint what that turbulence is and how it really affects what we're doing.
All right, you're listening to Perfect Game Retirement with Ryan Ledden, and we're talking about some of the lessons you can learn from air travel. And this last one, Ryan, I want to discuss with you. I know we wouldn't make it to our destination without a little help from air traffic control. I know the pilots know what they're doing, but you need to have a little bit of that guidance to make sure you're avoiding those obstacles, maybe that you can't see. And when you look at what you do every day, you kind of serve as that air traffic control, don't you?
Yeah, this is a great analogy. I like this. And so, yeah, some people can be their own pilot, and that's great. Maybe they did that their whole lives and they've never worked with an advisor, and now they're getting to this point where it's like, oh, okay, this is a different phase of life that I'm entering. I am no longer making an income and I'm taking money out. How do I create that? What accounts am I pulling from? So, and that's where kind of that air traffic controller or myself as an advisor can kind of come in and help navigate that. So that's why we take pride in being comprehensive planners, where we're really covering every single thing. Because again, the accumulation phase could be very different than the decumulation phase, and how we take that money out. What do we sell each month? What accounts are we taking it from? And there's no set account that we take it from first. I mean, there's a combination. So if you have pre-tax, post-tax, and even Roth money, how are we navigating? How are we taking that money out? Because depending on what accounts we take it out of depends on what tax bracket you're in, and depends on how much money of that you keep yourself, because the government's going to get their tax money. It's just, how do we be as efficient as possible? And if we can keep more money in your pocket and not to the government, then that's what we're trying to do. So avoiding those pitfalls along the way, that's what an air traffic controller does. That's what an advisor does, because sometimes people make irrational decisions during a time of downturn or volatility, and we're that voice of reason to help with that.
I love that. Well, if you have any questions for Ryan, if you want to begin getting some help, kind of guiding you in the right direction, make sure you're doing everything right that you need to be doing now, give them a call. It's 800-388-0085 to get in touch with Black Oak Asset Management. Set up that complimentary consultation that we'd offer anyone that listens to this show, 800-388-0085. What are some of the things you guys are talking about with your clients here towards the end of the year, Ryan?
Yeah, end of the year, there's definitely some planning opportunities to take place. I mean, a lot of our work in our office kind of does align with what a CPA does. You know, the first of the year, there's usually a lot of things going on, but even the end of the year for us, there's some things to be thinking about. Again, anybody who's got their own individual retirement plan, like a solo 401k, those contributions as an employee, those have to be in. And if you're not sure what a solo 401k is, then that's a person who owns their own business and it's just you. So there's a way to open up a 401k and it's just your name, but that's got to be in by the end of the year. Roth conversions need to be done by the end of the year. Again, so we try to take advantage of that if it's a fit. When it comes to Roth conversions, again, if you're not sure what that is, that's taking pre-tax money out of an IRA and moving it to a Roth. You just have to be able to pay the taxes out of it. Now, I encourage people to pay the tax bill out of their back pocket, in their wallet, in their checking account, and not the money that's being moved over. You don't want to take the tax out of that $10,000 Roth conversion and now have $8,000 in a Roth. Now you want to put the whole 10 grand and then just write a check to the Treasury Department, which for some people is painful, but you know what? They're going to get their tax revenue sometime. So does it make sense to go ahead and do that? And you have to do that by the end of the year. So definitely some year-end things to think about that need to be on top of mind heading into these holiday seasons that we're coming in.
Very good. Well, whether you're ready to begin planning, taking those first steps towards a plan for the future, or if you just want to get your hands on the books that Ryan's created, the Federal Employees book, the book for women and finance, all that can be done by calling 800-388-0085. 800-388-0085 to get in touch with Black Oak Asset Management. Well, that's going to do it for us here on another episode of Perfect Game Retirement. Thanks again for joining us. We'll be back again next week with Ryan Ledden and Black Oak Asset Management. I am Ben George. Thank you for listening.
Information provided is for informational purposes only and does not constitute tax, investment, or legal advice. Please consult with a qualified professional before taking any action. Securities and registered investment advisory services offered through Silver Oak Securities, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Black Oak Asset Management and Silver Oak Securities, Inc. are not affiliated.